I would like to ask to introduce you to Christine Jung-Hung. She's a professor at Ghent University, and she combines both social and natural sciences in her background. And yeah, she's looking at behavior towards innovative products and services.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And hello, everyone. Very nice to see you. And so far, you have seen different results related to the production side, the whole value chain, and now we will look at the consumption side. And this is where the money comes from usually, so that's quite interesting. Before I start, I would like to first introduce my team, because this would not have been possible without them. From Ghent, we have Professor Wim Verbeke, who is not around here, and we have our PhD researcher, Helene, here. She's there, so if you have any questions related to our studies, you're very welcome to contact her. And we also have partners from Wageningen. Unfortunately, they're not around, so we have Arnold and Emilia. And then in IRTA, we have Luis, Anna, and Israel. And Luis is there as well, so if you have any questions related to the sensory part, you're also welcome to contact him. Before we start, I have a question for you. So, have you heard of or tried food products with microalgae before this conference? You have 3 options. The first one, I've heard of these products and already tasted them. And second option, I've heard of these products but never tasted them yet. And third, haven't heard of it, neither you have tasted it, of course. So first, who have heard of them and tried them already? Okay, majority of you. And second group, who have heard of them but never tried them yet. Okay, your chance will be here. Your chance is coming. So today you will be able to taste the different products later. And I guess no one have never heard of this products. Okay. And we will have a look at what European consumers find them and whether they are aware of them. But I guess you already know they are not as aware of, or they are not as familiar with microalgae products as you. We have 4 main topics that you will look at today. The first one, we talk about familiarity, like the questions that I just asked you. And then second part, about perceptions, what they think about microalgae products. Then third, whether they're willing to try them once they have heard about them, and whether they're willing to pay for certain attributes. Then, we have so many different individuals. Everyone is different. How do we try to group them? How do we put them into meaningful segmentations that we can have more targeted marketing strategies? We will have a look at what we can do with this insight. So the first one, since the general or average consumers, they are still not very familiar with microalgae, and you will see how our results will be different. And compared to you all, in general, European consumers are not very familiar with microalgae, and there is quite a huge country difference. For example, more consumers from Spain have heard of these products and might have already tasted them, compared to, for example, in Hungary. And in general, more consumers from the Netherlands and Hungary, at least the majority of them, have never heard of this product. So there are some country differences between the countries. Then, because we want to know what they think about this product, but we also realize microalgae may not be as familiar to consumers compared to macroalgae like seaweed. So some of these results also included findings related to seaweed, and we can look at them with in 3 different ways. So we have ABC. We first look at the associations they have, and then we look at big data and consumer survey. So first, when you get to a new concept, very often we as humans, we will come up with different associations, even if we are not aware of what they are, or even it's the first time we hear about them. So the first study is related to associations, and that was conducted by our colleagues at Wageningen. I keep pressing the wrong button, sorry. And this is an interview in the Netherlands with 20 individuals. So we asked them what are their first impressions related to this product before they were told about anything related to, for example, microalgae like spirulina, chlorella, and then some of the macroalgae in different names. And then we ask them about their association, so what they would think about or what feeling they will have when they see these terms. For example, spirulina, they didn't come up with a lot of associations that become significantly, that can be significantly grouped into any of the characteristics. But let's say chlorella here, they first think of scientific terms. So they think of this more as some kind of scientific product or scientific compound. But then when we move down to, let's say, macroalgae, then they sometimes talk about visual sensory properties, for example, like colors, shape, different characteristics that you can see them visually. And when it's about sea spaghetti, they talk of nature, water, landscape, algae. For nori, also the color, shape, etc. And then for hijiki, they think of culture or geographical places. Then these participants were shown a 30-second short video clips of these products in food products. So they see, for example, someone eating those items with such product. Then after the clip, then they started to associate spirulina with food and drinks. So before seeing the clip, when they are shown this word spirulina, they did not think of food and drinks immediately. But after the clips, that's where it shows up. And some of these associations changes. For example, before they saw this video clip, they did not really, they immediately thought of, for example, related to color and shape, but they did not think of something else after they watched the clip. So this is more exploratory to see what people immediately think about when they hear the terms from a different type of microalgae and macroalgae. Okay. Then the second part related to big data. Then we look online. This is conducted by colleagues, Israel and other colleagues in IRTA. So this is with big data. They look at the different social media, news, blog, online, and they try to search with the keywords with spirulina, chlorella, algae, microalgae, and seaweed to see what would be the post about. And related to microalgae consumption. So in total, there are many posts related to these keywords. There are 2 million posts out there, but not all of them related to food consumption. For example, some of them, if they mention it as, I have a microalgae painting, then it is considered as irrelevant. So only the relevant posts were retained for analysis. And based on this post, we could analyze for the sentiment, whether it has a positive sentiment or a negative sentiment among consumers. And we can group them into different classifiers. So I will show you the highlight of the result. Most of the posts have a positive sentiment. It means most of the consumers have a positive feeling related to microalgae or macroalgae in this case. Health benefits were mentioned the most often, and some of the associations on the post, not associations, so on the post, they were related to sustainability, nutritional properties, and good taste or different organoleptic properties. So these were the benefits that are highlighted or posted on the internet when we look at the big data. And there are also some of the negative sentiments that we could find, but there are only 3% of them. So mainly they were very positive, and there were 3% of negative posts related to that, and mainly related to side effects on health, perhaps bad taste, and the composition. So in general, the positive side is a lot stronger than the negative side. There are a lot more posts related to it. And some of this information related to positive sentiments can be overly optimistic and not always supported by the scientific evidence. This could be a risk in the long term because then people may start to develop distrust, or they may get a little bit disappointed if they find out that all of this so-called there are posts related to superfoods as well. So sometimes microalgae were called superfood on the internet and social media as well. So those were not supported by the scientific evidence. And sometimes if when it's related to the negative sentiments, interestingly, most of the negative sentiment or the potential risk that they mentioned in the post were more supported by the scientific evidence. But of course, that's only 3% of them. Okay. Then this is based on a large-scale consumer research survey that we have done in 2021. That were in 5 European countries, linked to the result that you've seen just now related to familiarity. So if we ask people what they think about microalgae, this is what they think mainly. So from the top here, are more positively rated. For example, most of them think that microalgae food products are innovative, sustainable, and healthy, and relatively less of them would think the opposite. And if we look at the main challenges that microalgae products would face in this graph, then you can see that more of the consumers would think that it may tend to be more difficult to find, or it could be highly processed. So this is to rank what they think related to food products with microalgae. Okay. Then, now the question is whether they will be willing to try, because the attitude is relatively favorable. So now we will see, are they really willing to try, or they just think it has a positive image? And we asked them based on different products, different carrier products, and also different microalgae species. You could see that they are quite different between the products. For plant-based sausages, less than half of the participants indicated that they were willing to try. In contrast, vegetable soup was the food product that most of the participants, or at least more than half of them, were willing to try. And we, at the same time, also asked about plant-based cream, energy bars, plant-based pasta, and bread, and they were in between. So we've seen that there's such a big difference between the carrier products when it comes to the willingness to try the product. But the species of the different microalgae, Corina or Spirulina or this Tetrasomes, the differences between them were not big. It's just that very often consumers find Corina and Spirulina more familiar, we suppose, and that's why it has a slightly higher amount of consumers who are willing to try products with these two compared to Tetrasomes. And now we will look at the example with plant-based pasta when we talk about willingness to pay. Because this is a survey, it's not actual economic experiments in the room. So this is more choice experiments that we try to see if different type of informations that consumer will be willing to pay for the different attributes and information that are given to them. For example, so from this result, we could see that when this is positive, it means that consumers are willing to pay more for the different attributes that are listed here. So in this case, for pasta with microalgae protein, that we could see when it carries a organic label, consumers were willing to pay 1.38 euros per 500 gram more compared to when it does not have an organic label. So consumers do value these products with organic label more. And secondly, it will be when the products carry a Nutri-Score A label versus when it doesn't carry one. And thirdly, followed by a vegan label. And in this case, we also give them the information that either the product is yellow to light green or light to dark yellow. So this is just an information. And we've seen that it has some effects, but not so much in terms of willingness to pay. So the color description itself is less important compared to having such a front of pack labeling when it comes to marketing communication. So now we know what they think about the products. We know how familiar they are with microalgae-related products. And then we will see how do we deal with this consumer insights, or what can we make out of the different consumer profiles. So if we try to put all the consumers on a graph, and we can try to put it in two axes. So here y-axis is related to the perception. So the higher it is, the more positive their perceptions would be. For example, the more they think that it is healthier, more innovative, it has more nutrients, etc. And then when it's lower in the axis, it would be more negative. And for the x-axis, it's about willingness to try. So the closer to 5, the more willing they are to try such products. Or for those who have already tried it, the more willing they are to eat again this product. So here would be the most willing, and this side will be the least willing. And we can group all the consumers together to see which segments or which groups they belong. And we can find 4 groups of them. We have the ones who are very enthusiastic about the product, so we call them enthusiasts. And we have some who are relatively, they would be willing to try, but and they're half and half, and they're still thinking whether they should eat this product. So we call them cautiously waiting. And then we have a group that is in between, so half and half for both perceptions and willingness to pay, and they are the indecisive. And finally, we also have a group of consumers. Luckily, that is also the smallest group here. They are relatively uninterested. So just a question from theories. Who do you think it would be the most interesting for the marketeer to target? If you would be a marketeer, which group would you target? Who think it would be the enthusiast? Oh, sorry, not the profile yet. Who would target enthusiast? And who would target cautiously waiting? Indecisive? Uninterested? Wow, you all have marketing background, I think. Indeed, based on marketing theories, indeed, these are the more interesting groups. Because if they're so enthusiastic, you probably don't have to do a lot anymore and they would try it. And if they're really uninterested, it would be really hard to change them, and they may even not like it if you push too hard. So you all have marketing background. And now we want to look at their profiles. So who they are, what make them different from one another. Some of them could be slightly similar. So now we can highlight, just note that the profiles here do not mean that the whole groups are them, but it just basically means that these are the highlights who are overrepresented in this group, or what are the bigger proportions in this group. And I will explain the two together, the cautiously waiting and enthusiast, because they're quite similar. They're overrepresented by participants from Italy, by participants who have a relatively higher educational level. They are bachelor's or above. And based on financial situation, so perceived financial situation that they think that they are managing very or quite well. And many of them are flexitarians. And for the group of enthusiasts, they seem to be in the younger group. So this survey was only done by adults. So this is the youngest group that have completed the survey, age 18 to 29. Then the group of indecisive, many of them are from Hungary, and they're also relatively young, and most of them have a slightly lower educational level compared to the other groups. They don't follow any dietary regime, and they're overrepresented by the group that is underweight in terms of BMI. And lastly, the group that are relatively uninterested, they're from Germany and Hungary mostly, and they are the slightly older group. They're the oldest group in the survey who completed the survey, and they also have secondary education. And in terms of perceived financial situation, quite many of them think that they have difficulties. They also do not really follow diets, and they have a bigger group of underweight individuals. So this is how we can profile the different segments and enable more targeting marketing strategies to see what they need. For example, if you want to now target cautiously waiting, they already have quite a positive perceptions and willingness to try. Maybe you can let them taste the product to let them know that they actually taste good. Then they may be encouraged to move forward to become enthusiasts. And maybe for consumers who are indecisive, if you give them more information, if you stay more transparent with the communication, they may get more informed related to the product, and hopefully that they will move towards to decide as well. So this is how we use different consumer insights to come up with more targeted marketing strategy. And we also noticed some different trends. For example, people who are uninterested or moving towards the side of uninterested, some of them will have a higher level of food neophobia, so they don't like to try new food. Some of you might be able to identify it with yourself. Sometimes I have a bit the same. And food technological neophobia as well, when the products seem too innovative, that sometimes some people do not really like it. And when we moved towards the enthusiast, then we saw some of the attitudes that stood out from their profiles. Those are people who have a higher general health interest, they have more concern for the environment, and they find the products more positive. They rate the product more positively, for example, or especially related to nutrient profiles, like the different like protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals that we have in our survey, that they rated them more positively. And finally, they're more interested about the related information as well. But this also makes it more challenging, because if they are more enthusiastic already, and they are more interested to the information, so you will be reaching them if you give information. But the other way around, if they are not very interested, and their interest in related information is actually low, then it means that it's much harder to reach this group compared to the ones that are already enthusiastic to start with. And that's why sometimes marketing efforts can be so difficult, as you might have heard of this preaching to the converted. Okay, then key messages. You've seen different things, but before that, you might be wondering, how do these products actually taste? And indeed, there were tasting test sensory evaluations conducted and led by our colleague, Luis and Irte. And there are some preliminary results available on the poster. So we invite you to have a look at our poster, Assessing Consumer Sensory Acceptance Food with Microalgae. And indeed, their liking of the food products would be heavily influenced by the sensory attribute. And you can compare your personal result with the result of the tasting panel. So key messages, we have pro-future. And if we try to organize the key messages into pro-futures, we get 4 key messages. First of all, P, perceptions, they are generally positive, and most consumers have a more positive and favorable attitudes towards this product, although the products are not very familiar among them yet, because they think about natural, healthy, sustainable. And second key message is related to willingness to try and willingness to pay. So the willingness to eat, they are different between countries, and they are very different when we look at it with the different Korea products. So not just with the microalgae as ingredient itself, but if they are used or applied to different food products, it also influences whether they're willing to eat them. And then the optimisms, or if we look at the favorable attitudes, mainly they are related to the innovativeness, sustainability, and healthiness. While the opposite, the challenge, mainly related to them thinking these kind of products can be highly processed. So the positive side of this, and then the challenge is that it could be difficult to find and highly processed. And finally, because of the differences between the European consumers and also countries, the future marketing efforts should be targeted to the consumer segments. And that is all. Also, thank you very much to the different partners. It would not have been possible without the input from all of you. And if you're interested in this kind of studies or more consumer-related insight or interdisciplinary research, you're more than welcome to contact us. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions? We have time to take 1 or 2.
So the results you did show about willingness to try, it's mainly based on interviews. So somehow you have been able to describe to a consumer the difference between a chlorella and a tetrasalmis.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed, the results are so far based on the survey. So they did not see the actual products. They only see the descriptions and the information they were given that was given to them. So they did not get any explanation what exactly tetrasami is.
To the poster and to the sensory attributes, what would be the impact if you do the same questionnaire, but together with tasting of some samples?
That's exactly what we would like to find out. And because now the product is fixed, the ones that they can taste it, then we can only see whether they really accept it or whether they like those products with the carrier products attached. Because that it could be a very interesting research maybe for the next future projects. We can do experiments with like economic experiments, for example, economic experimental auctions. So people get an extensive explanation related to the different species, different products, and they can taste them, and they have to use, for example, money out of their pockets to bid for those products. Then we get very realistic insights about whether they're willing to pay for them and whether they really accept them in a realistic situation.
And and the aim is always to go to ready-made products, or is it also the aim that you stimulate people just to use kind of microalgae during their own cooking?
Yeah, we actually have similar questions related to that. So we try to ask them under which conditions they would be willing to try or eat the product. And we saw there are some differences. And we also have questions related to whether they're willing to consume products that are, for example, animal proteins or meat products that were fed by the different type of microalgae. And if you're curious, you can always request for the result, or I will be presenting those results in a conference in France in November. So if you're interested in any of this, you're welcome to ask us. It's a very big survey that we've conducted, so it includes quite a lot of different results.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the results. My question is about what is the sustainability of the interest? We have seen that we will be more expensive, or we are, and probably we will be more expensive than other even vegetable sources of proteins. While in the presentation just before, the environmental impact is not dramatically better than the existing products, and is definitely less than soya-based products. So yesterday there's interest, people willing to try, but what will make people buy sustainably those products if they are not better, if we cannot demonstrate that they bring benefits, and if they are more expensive?
That's definitely a very valid point. Thank you. And indeed, for food products, for consumers, we often look at firstly taste, the sensory aspect around it, how it looks, how it tastes, and sometimes we look at the healthiness or sustainability. And indeed, for consumers, we should not forget that we tend to look at the visible aspect. We tend to look at the experience attributes that you can prove immediately what you think about the product. And while we talk about naturalness, sustainability, or healthiness, it's not something they can feel immediately. And that is something that would be a challenge for marketeer, because if we talk about sustainability of the consumer interest, not the product, of the consumer interest, the price is definitely something we will have to find solution for. Because now, at this very moment, if the price is so much higher than the conventional product, while they cannot taste the immediate difference on health, sustainability, or even if they don't stand out in terms of taste, it's very difficult to maintain. I would even say it's almost impossible to maintain if they don't sense the benefits immediately, while the price difference is so big. So that's definitely a valid point to mention the sustainability interests have to be coupled with the actual attributes of the products in both experience attributes that they can feel and they can prove themselves, and also the credibility part of how healthy or how safe, how sustainable those products they believe in.